Coach, and I am joined by the one and only Mr. Andrew Hansen. How are you, Mr. Hansen?
I'm doing well, Coach. I am excited about this two-game slate tomorrow. We've been talking about how it's been Groundhog Day, four
Yeah,
games basically at the same times every day. It's been terrific, but I really like these two-game slates, and now we get one, so I'm fired up.
that's awesome. You know me, I'm going to grumble and grumble because the more games to me, the better. Four's fine, but I even like more than that. But when it's one or two, it's not my favorite slate. So I'll be a little lighter, even though I think there's some great plays. But we'll be leaning on you for the big wins here. I know you're
Okay.
Mr. Showdown too, so
Yep.
we'll get you going there. But yeah, it was a wonderful day. I mean, it was Kobe Bryant Day 24. We had our promotion that we did as well. And quick shout out to our four winners, by the way. We've got 1 week winner was Carrie Wildcats at Carrie Wildcats on Twitter. And then we had another week winner at JJ420JJ2002, just to be a tough one. And our month winners were at Tyler Alonso and at Alpha Sigma 74. So congratulations to those four winners. I know we already have Tyler Alonso jumped in Discord this evening. I think the other three will be joining us tomorrow. So it was a fun giveaway. Thank you, everybody, for retweeting and posting and commenting and everything else. We've got a couple of real big giveaways coming right before the launch of football. So that's going to be the next thing on the docket there. But it was fun, and we're really excited to get those four new folks in there or back in there for any of them that had been part of it before. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's great to have the family expand a little bit. Fun giveaway, and more folks that we can really work hard to try to build the winning lineups for them.
No doubt. Real quickly, yesterday, if you listen to the podcast yesterday, we definitely had some good points. Not that you and I completely played all the points that we put forward, but at least we put them out there. So hopefully
That's right.
people listen to some of our hot takes about, very possibly a blowout in this Lakers game. We stated that Portland sort of looked like they hit the wall and were a little tired, and it was pretty much over, and we were right on the mark there, and then the Vukovic take and et cetera. So,
And then our secret squirrel was Lou
yes,
Dort,
he did
and
well.
we
Yeah,
talked about how they were going to let him shoot, and he went 3 for 9 on 3-pointers,
yeah,
and that's what we were looking for. He ended up giving us just over 5x, which that's not going to win you a contest, but it can certainly be a key piece of a winning lineup. And for me, it was kind of half and half. The lineups I built where I stacked the Houston OKC game, those went well and cashed. The lineups where I had Jimmy Butler, those did not go well. That was a real that just was not that was not ideal what happened with him. So
no.
that was rough. So 2 nights in a row with the Porzingis situation and Jimmy Butler. So let's turn it around here tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean we've been so hot. So tomorrow we get back in the groove for sure with two really interesting games too. We've got Utah Denver where Denver's surprisingly down 3-1. Everybody thought they were a contender. So to see how they respond in this game is going to be interesting. And then I don't know if you can have much more drama in this Dallas Clippers game. I mean, it's 2-2. You got the buzzer beating shot. You've got who's going to play, who's not, who's hurt. I mean, it's craziness, and it's fun though. I mean, it's definitely a blast. But 2-game slate. I don't have any injuries per se yet. They're not posted, but definitely catch us on Twitter. You can just follow us at DFS Coach Talk, or if you want to become a member, dfscoachtalk.com. Jump in. You'll be in Discord with us all morning. We're constantly posting information and updates in there, and we're definitely going to need it tomorrow with Porzingis and some of the other situations going on. So we'll review those in the morning. This podcast will be up in the middle of the night like it usually is, and so you'll have plenty of time to listen. And then the biggest bonus tomorrow, Andrew, which is really weird, we don't have an afternoon game.
I know.
How bizarre is that?
It's going to feel like a midnight tip-off, even though it's only 6:30 Eastern.
I know. It is, and actually an afternoon where, we're going to be able to get some other stuff done,
right,
and not just have to focus on the games. But I sort of hated it. I was used to this. I felt like it was the NCAA tournament time where you're just, nonstop eating and sleeping basketball. But it'll give us plenty of time tomorrow to see any of the changes and get any of the news.
I had a couple of notes, Coach.
Sure.
A short list I can give you. In the first game, Gary Harris has been upgraded to questionable. So there's an actual chance he might be out there with the hip issue. That could affect the rotation. And then in the second game, Porzingis is listed as a game time decision. And then Pat Beverly is listed as doubtful. All signs seem to point to him missing again. So we may have some value with Shamet and Reggie Jackson. So those are the headliners that I've seen. Yeah,
and like I say, we'll pull that information throughout the day tomorrow. I was able to share that inside info on Luka 2 nights ago, and I was very proud of that because I was able to dig in and get the info that he was playing. So I hope that enticed some of our listeners to use him when what did he have that game? 82.5 or something in that?
92.75 on DraftKings.
Oh my good God. Yes, that's incredible. So hopefully somebody listened to that. I don't have any news on Porzingis. The news that I got was that there isn't going to be any news on that. So whether it's just literally that touch and go with him, or strategically they want to keep that under their hats regarding the Clippers game plans, I don't know which one is valid, but what I can say is there is not any inside skinny on that. Luke is 100%, obviously not really, but 100% going to play. But KP, who knows? So I'm still fuming at him for not playing. I'm a little stunned that a bruised or sore knee can keep you out of a playoff game, but we'll see. We'll see what he's made of in this tomorrow. So
okay.
All right. Real quickly before we jump in, I want to thank our 2 presenting sponsors, mybookie.ag. It is the #1 sports wagering site you can go to for all of your sports wagering and casino action. Go to mybookie.ag or dfscoachtalk.com, and you will receive a 100% match all the way up to $1,000 on your first deposit by using the promo code CoachTalk, no space. So definitely do that. And you also get a $25 free play just for using that code and being a listener. Also, TVG.com, #1 horse racing site on the planet. $300 risk-free bet. You also can sign up by going to dfscoachtalk.com. Click on the banner that says $300 risk-free TVG.com, and they will honor that if you lose that first $300 bet, which is a great, great deal and exclusive to DFS Coach Talk. All right, we're diving in. We have 2 games. We can focus in, as you mentioned very astutely prior to the podcast. The prices are tweaked a little bit. Things fall a little differently when you have a 1 or 2 game slate like this. So you got to really dig your heels in and take a look at some of this pricing and see opportunity. The money versus minutes thing, like we talked about with Dort yesterday, did come into play. It doesn't always, but it did, in this instance. And we want to look for some of those gems in this group. So the first game, and the mybookie.ag lines are up. We've got the 6:30 p.m. Eastern game. It's the Utah Jazz, Denver Nuggets. It is 3-1 Utah right now, and Utah is a 3-point favorite. So 2 games in a row that they've been favored. I mentioned that last time too, because I was surprised because Denver had been favored the first games, and Utah did pull it out. And the over-under in this game is markedly lower than in the Mavericks-Clippers game. It's 221. So give us the skinny on the Jazz and Nuggets.
Well, the Nuggets have their backs up against the wall, and Murray was tremendous last game. 50 actual points.
Yeah.
He took 31 shots. He played 43 minutes, and I think they're going to need that same sort of performance from him to win this game. I just don't know if I can fade him. He's a much better price than Donovan Mitchell. He's $1,700 less than Mitchell on
crazy.
DraftKings.
Yeah.
And one of the quotes I read was from Paul Millsap talking about how they feel like they have a plan to deal with the pick and roll game, finally, of Utah. So they obviously are going to shift their strategy with Mitchell, which just makes me feel even a little bit better about playing Jamal Murray and having him locked in there, because you can put Murray out there with Luka in the second game and go from there. So I think that's going to be my primary build. The other question is, do you pair him up with Jokic, the center position?
Let me make one quick comment. Sure. Because the disparity in pricing is incredible here.
Yep.
On DraftKings, I mean, it's completely a no-brainer with that huge difference. I mean, 1,700. You know what it is on FanDuel?
It's only 700.
So there's $1,000 gap there, which is enormous on a slate like this. So, based on that savings on DraftKings, it makes Murray very, very tough to fade, even if you use him as a blocker, because I think he's going to be ridiculously owned for sure. Right. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, it's a great point. This really can change a lot on each site, especially with the position restrictions on FanDuel. I mean, you look at the 150 max entry contest over there. I don't know how you could possibly make 150 lineups that you thought had even the biggest long shot of winning, because, power forward is a mess. There's a huge gap between the expensive and the cheap. Center is pretty sparse. So there just aren't that many combinations. I just think it's very interesting. DraftKings, it's so much easier to build multiple lineups and shift guys around and do different combinations. So anyway, just wanted to make that point. But the question for me with Denver is, do you add Jokic? He is pretty expensive. There aren't that many expensive guys here. He's really in that same price range as Kawhi Leonard. So it's a little bit tough to pick Jokic over Kawhi on DraftKings. There's only a $600 difference. So it's a
$1,200 difference on FanDuel. So just again, you're going to be playing two completely different contests. You're not going to be able to use the same guys on both sites because of the pricing.
Right. Two other guys I want to mention for Denver. Millsap, who you were on this last game, he went 16.7 rebounds, 4 assists.
Yeah.
His best game in a while. And
that was a big help to cash for sure.
That was.
No doubt.
Now he's 5,000 on both sites, so he's right in that mid-tier. And as we were talking about before the podcast, I think that these two-game slates often come down to the guys in the low 4K, sometimes around 5K range. On a much bigger slate, especially on DraftKings, you need guys who are, the 3K, really cheap guys who go off. They're in a great spot. That's the key value play on a big slate. On a two-game slate, I find that these 4K and sometimes 5K guys are the real difference makers. I gave you that example of a guy like JJ Redick, who is just kind of a boring guy. You look at him as a 25 fantasy point guy, and then all of a sudden he gets 33 to 35, and you have a couple guys like that, and that's what gives you the winning lineup. And I'm really looking at all the guys in that price range, and there's several of them in this game. There's Millsap. Jeremy Grant is 4.7. Royce O'Neal is 4.5. Clarkson is 5.2. And then Ingles is 5.1. That's the guy who I would be least comfortable playing. He only took 4 shots in the last game, playing 35 minutes.
That's incredible.
I mean, a guy who, when Conley was out, he was really running the show.
Yeah.
And his usage basically went down to 0. It just went off a cliff.
It's incredible.
That's the key theme for me is evaluating those guys in that price range. And then again, site dependent for game 1 with Mitchell. I probably won't play him on DraftKings because he's 9.7. What are your thoughts on him on DraftKings?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to play him just on FanDuel just because of the pricing. And you've got to imagine some regression. I mean, you look at the fact that it's the first time in NBA history 2 guys in the same game scored over 50 in a playoff game. That's pretty astounding when you think about Chamberlain versus Russell and Jabbar and all these guys out there rolling. So very, very hard to believe. But I want to hit on a point, and it's sort of the theme for this podcast today. And since we have 2 games, we can spend a few minutes on it. But I'm exactly with you. We've seen enough games with the 8 play-ins and now the playoffs that we see patterns developing. And this was a new, unique situation that nobody could evaluate, no optimizers could crunch because it's never happened before. There's never not been travel days. There's never not been a home court advantage, et cetera, et cetera. So you're looking at a brand new piece of information. And what I have determined today after really looking at this and examining results, because you have to step back and look at results to plan to go forward when you have enough sample size. And I think we're just to that point now where we have enough sample size. So what I'm seeing from when we're crushing it, which we've done very, very well, but when we've been in those top 1% kind of lineups thus far, we've been able to take a couple of the big time stars that do end up performing to the way they're supposed to perform, and then building with those lower mid-level guys that you just referred to. And I'm going to give you a sample of that because this is how I think you take down slates right now in this new world of NBA bubble.
Summer is here and sports are finally back, which can only mean one thing. It's time to get back, relax, and make some cash. Everyone has to start somewhere, which is why you want to get off on the right foot by choosing an established book like MyBookie.ag. With all the major sports seasons just around the corner, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. Dynamic betting lines and a simple-to-use platform make the process easier than it's ever been. Create your account in just a few easy steps. Deposit and begin placing your bets. Sign up now using promo code COACHTALK to get your deposit matched 100% all the way up to $1,000. Plus an extra $25 free play. That's promo code COACHTALK. Use it to score yourself an extra piece of the pie. With MyBookie, you bet, you win, and most importantly, when you win, you get paid.
You go to FanDuel, and you just look at prices from 5,300 down to 4,400. Okay, so I'm going to read. This is no skipping around. This is right down the list, and the guys I'm going to say, it's a perfect example of if you roster 2 or 3 of these guys on the right day in this price range to fit in with your big stars, you're going to take it down. Because as I say, each one of these, you've referred to some of them already, they're all guys that can score 35, 40 fantasy points. As we had the big takedown in Utah's second game in the playoffs when Royce O'Neal had 37.5. You stack a few of those guys together like I did with Millsap that last time, and you got the combination that's going to work for you. So I'm going to go down this line because it's really pretty amazing. So this is a $700 group. That's it. They're all right there, 53 to 46. So Marcus Morris, 5,300. Dorian Finney-Smith, 52. Jordan Clarkson, 51. Paul Millsap, 5. Joe Ingles, 49. Maxi Kleber, 49. Jeremy Grant 48, Seth Curry 48, Montrezl Harrell 48, Royce O'Neal 46, even Zubac 46, and Trey Burke 44. Now those are all guys we've been playing and everybody's rostering, but that's the meat and the point I wanted to make tonight was, go ahead, let's strategize and figure out, are we playing Luke? Are we playing Kawhi? Are we playing the Joker? Are we playing Mitchell? Figure out those couple of guys that are going to be the keys. And then instead of trying to dumpster dive, like, we've done sometimes been able to do in the past, and put some $3,500 guys that are going to, you hope are going to get in, or, that kind of thing. Instead of going with the second flight guy after your two studs, like a Rudy Gobert for 76 or a Paul George for 75, go down to that group of 10 people I just mentioned, because that's where you're going to be able to build and supplement those two big guys that you roster. So I just wanted to share that because that was the conclusion that I came up with, and it just solidified the thinking that I've had. I think that both of us have had a good success for our DFS Coach Talk team, but statistically it's proving out now in results and in being able to see how that goes. So I'm going to continue with that pattern now because there's enough sample size. I think this format of building can really pay off for you.
Yeah, it can. And I'm just smiling because just shifting a couple things over on the FanDuel lineup as we discuss those guys in that price range. I've got, looks like 4 of them in my lineup right now. And just looking again at Utah one last time here with this talk about a new defensive approach, you got to figure they're going to try to get the ball out of Mitchell's hands more. I mean, 51 points, he got 18 free throws. He was just unstoppable, and they've got to come up with a different plan to stay in this series. So if they are successful, what's going to happen? The usage is going to go back to Conley and Clarkson. And so those guys are a lot cheaper, and I'm going to build some lineups where I put both of those guys together, at least one of them, some with both of them, and fade Mitchell, and see if it works out.
Do you know why I think Utah's up 3-1 in this series? And I don't think it, I know it.
Why?
I think that Mike Malone has gotten his pants coached off of him by Quinn Snyder. Quinn Snyder has coached the daylights out of him. He's strategically used pick and roll, plays ISOs, and he's completely forced Malone to adjust, and he hasn't adjusted. How can you let Donovan Mitchell single-handedly beat you and not run a blitz at him or a double or make him give up the ball before that screen takes place? It makes no sense to me. I mean, I think they'll do some of those things in this game, and it could change the results, but that's been the difference in this series. I mean, make somebody else, make Joe Ingles or Royce O'Neal or the guys that are on the floor then in crunch time, make them beat you. Make Mitchell give the ball up. So, that I think has been a real big error on his part. And part of the reason why I'm thinking of fading Mitchell is I think they have to adjust to that. How can you lose a series 4-1 and let a dude drop 50 on you 3 times in a row? Literally. Yep. Not, we're talking real numbers. So I think you're going to see some adjustment there. And I do think some of those ancillary Jazz guys are going to have to step up. And it could be Clarkson, it could be Ingles, it could be any of those guys, to adjust to it. And as far as Denver goes, I like the Denver side. I like stacking 2 or 3 of them because, we've said this multiple times, but it needs to be said every time there's an elimination game. When it's all hands on deck, it's all hands on deck. You lose, you go home. You're out of the bubble, it's over. So whatever minutes it takes, whatever you're feeling, you got to get in there and play it. So I think that you can definitely key some of the main Denver guys. They're going to play additional minutes, including the big boy and Murray. Those guys you got to look at. That Jokic is definitely in play for me. I like this game, even though it's a much lower number than the other game. and I think it's going to be hard fought. I think Denver finds a way to grind this out right down to the end. I think Denver's going to win this game personally.
Yep, I do too.
All right, let's go to game 2. It is, this is an interesting matchup. The Dallas Mavericks and LA Clippers. It's a 9 p.m. game, and they have the Clippers -6.5. The over-under, again, 235.5. So we're talking 14.5 points higher than the other one. So this game is definitely going to get stacked. Everybody's going to be looking. I don't know if you can chase numbers more than you could if you start Luka again, but here's the bottom line for me. And I said this with Harden when Westbrook's out, but it's even more so here. Without Porzingis, I mean, is it humanly possible to not play Luka if Porzingis doesn't play?
Only if you're hoping for him to get hobbled again and not feel 100% and, want to just have a perfect combination of guys between 6,000 and 8,000 that all smash it. Because that happens. You can have 1 or 2 studs go off, but do the other guys match it, the 4 to 5K guys? And even if they do go off, that doesn't mean you're going to win. There could be a better build, a mid-tier balanced build. Obviously, that happens more on the bigger slates. It's tougher to do here on a 2-game slate. But, Luka gets 65 fantasy points. That doesn't necessarily mean he's in the winning lineup, but it is very, very likely.
And that's almost a 30-point regression from the last game.
Right.
So what does that tell you? I mean, I'm with you. Now, let's just say we go through the day tomorrow, and again, you can follow us on Twitter and in Discord with the news. Let's say Porzingis is going to give it a roll. Does that change your perspective?
No, I'm going to play Luka. Yeah.
Okay.
It's on the 2-game slate. Like you said, he'd have to regress 30 fantasy points, and he probably will. He won't have, like career game back-to-back necessarily, but I sort of like Murray. I just would find it very hard to fade him on this 2-game slate, whether Porzingis is playing or not.
Yeah, and again, that's why I hate 1 and 2 game slates, because you're forced to play people. I mean, again, I'll if some of our listeners don't know what it means to be a blocker, I mean, you got to play Luka as a blocker here. And what that means is generally 90 to 95% of the people you're going to be banging heads with in some of these contests are going to use him. So if you fade him, you really don't have anything to gain, because he's going to do decent, of course. Only way you just in a blue moon is, like you said, if something happens with his ankle again or something of that nature, but you can't anticipate anything like that.
Right.
So this way, let's say he does have a big regression and does get only 50 fantasy points. Well, you know what? That's fine. The guy you're going against in a head-to-head or in a single entry, etc., is going to have him in there too. So that's what I mean by a blocker is it doesn't really hurt you either way. It neutralizes the field. And that's why I don't like small 1 or 2 game slates. But, in that sense, Murray, like you mentioned, Luka, you just plug them in and then you win it. So it's almost to me like playing a contest where you're only rostering 3 or 4 guys that are going to make the difference. Everybody else is going to have the same people. So that's my point there.
Right. So looking at the rest of the Dallas lineup after Luka, the one guy I wanted to talk to you about is Dorian Finney-Smith. He's the guy that's just sort of, you just overlook him on most slates. Yeah. But on a 2-game slate, he becomes much more important. The last 2 games, he's had 27 and 28 fantasy points. Again, not that noteworthy, but that's at 4.8. That's better than a 5x return. And would anybody be surprised if that was 33 to 35 fantasy points tomorrow? He hits 1 or 2 more threes. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I wish I had him. He was the key to the winning lineup. So do you think it's possible that he gets a couple more threes and he's one of these guys that really pays off for us?
There's a couple of things there. I mean, the one good thing about rostering Dorian Finney-Smith is he's going to get a lot of minutes. I mean, Carlisle depends on him as the best perimeter defender on the team, so he's going to get a lot of minutes. The problem is really 27, 28 is sort of his ceiling at this time because he's not taking a ton of shots. He's going to get some putbacks and a few things like that. And, he will get a few corner jumpers when Luka penetrates. But, I don't think you're going to get I don't think he's got a 35 to 40 fantasy point game in him. He's just more of a defensive player. But, it's a risk. It's that group of 10 players I read off. I mean, he could have 28, 27 and be, a good fill-in at that price. Or he could do, which a lot of these guys do at this number, put up an 18 or 17 and a half, and then you're chasing points the whole time. So I get it, but he is one of those guys on the fence with Dorian Finney-Smith. If Porzingis plays, I definitely don't use him because his usage goes down even substantially more. But if Porzingis is out, like I think he probably will be, then I think he is possibly in play. But you got to remember that the shots are going to the big three that are the unsung heroes for the Mavericks right now, and that's Trey Burke, Hardaway Jr., and Seth Curry. Those three guys have been money. They've been hitting threes, big shots, fourth quarter shots, and those three all need considered. But here's the problem. It's great if you're a Mavs fan or you're coaching the Mavs, you can count on all those guys. But in DFS, it's a nightmare because any of those three guys could have 6 threes, 20 real points, 30 to 35 fantasy points. But any of the three of them could have 12 or 14 fantasy points. So, that's where you got to dig in, and that's where you got to look at where you want to go. Now, you know me well enough by now. When I see players that are playing the same role or position for a team and they're splitting up that usage, I run from it because I don't want to roll the dice. I'll go play craps if I want to roll the dice. And nobody can sit here right now and tell me of those three guys who's going to go off tomorrow. Now, there's all the possibilities, but the one thing I do know is they're all three going to get minutes. They're all three going to take shots, and they're all three going to use some of that usage for the 2-3 guard position where they're going to be shooting the ball. So I'm going to steer from that. And that's, that's just my theory. Now, if you want to go with one of them because you got a feel or a hunch, then that's exactly what it is. But if you really want to, crunch it on statistical analysis, there's definitely a split of usage in that position for the Mavericks in a game with the Clippers that are a pretty damn good perimeter defense team, even though the Mavs have been just smashing it lately.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point, especially with your cash game perspective of with those three guys, it's hard to predict, and you're just not feeling very good about your cash lineup if you put one of them in there because you're just not really that confident that it's going to be that guy. But the thing with all three of them was last game they played over 30 minutes. Curry had 31, and Hardaway and Burke were up above 35 minutes. And you mentioned they're going to get their minutes. But I think one of them likely will go off, and you will need that guy in your lineup. So I think you need to take a shot on it in a GPP. And if you pick him, then you have a chance to win. The thing I like about Burke is that he got that big jump in minutes, and he penetrates a lot. And so don't you just feel a little bit better about him than, Curry, who's a little bit more of a jump shooter? Hardaway, he's got the size. He's a different player. But that's the one thing about Burke that I feel, he's a little bit more of a cash play if he's going to get those minutes because it's not only about the jump shot with him.
Yeah, I mean, I have to, disagree. Just in the sense that as a cash play, I'm going to reiterate the same point. I don't feel comfortable saying that about any of those three guys because Hardaway, can be a leader at times and take a lot of shots. Curry's been shooting the ball very well. And, regardless of the fact that it's outside shots, I mean, he's a Curry, so he's knocking shots down. And then Burke, again, I get it. He's doing that. But it's just, to me, I don't see how you can statistically state any of those are a better play than the other. So for me, I'm going to pass all three of them in cash. I'll probably use a combination of two of them in a GPP, though. So that's the different thinking. I want secure minutes from guys where I feel like unless something goes haywire with injury or fouls or something like that, that I can really anticipate they're going to get a 30 to 35 minute run with their normal usage as part of what's going on in the flow of things, like a Murray or like a Jokic or Luka, or I know those guys are expensive, but on the lesser side, maybe a Royce O'Neal. I got to look more at the game plan there, or someone that, who's Royce sharing minutes with? That Mr. Niang fella, but he's not going to ever play more minutes than Royce or play down the stretch. Whereas with the Mavericks, they've used a combination of one or two or three of those three guys that we mentioned down the stretch. So there's no guarantees there. But again, that's a cash play perspective. That's not a perspective that's going to take down a big GPP for you, but that's the distinction that you have to make. Play one lineup in cash. I'm going to, again, be fading those three guys in a situation where I'm playing somebody head to head for $270, and I need to have my solidified cash play guys in there that I know are going to get minutes. They have to perform, but they're going to be in there with the opportunity, as opposed to me trying to grab Tim Hardaway Jr. on the day that he hits 10 threes and take down a GPP. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it certainly does. How about the bigs for Dallas? Kleba, Boban? If
what
Porzingis
shooting
is out
from three, you're never gonna. I'm gonna have you give us a guess. This is a true stat. What percentage is Maxi Kleba shooting from three in this series?
Oh gosh, I don't know. 23.
6.7.
Ouch.
He's made 1 3. That's it.
He makes Paul George look like Larry Bird.
Isn't that an incredible stat?
That's
so
low.
There you go. So
that's not good.
How you take Maxi in that kind of slump, I don't care if Porzingis plays or not. Until I see Maxi turn the corner, he's not going to make my lineup. Okay. Now, Boban, they're rotating him in to match up against Harrell a lot, and he's getting some run, and we know he's a monster points per minute guy. I think he, to me, is more playable than a Kleba.
Okay. Well, I certainly trust the upside of Boban much, much more. I think he's a much better player. So I'm not going to argue.
Maxi's a good defender, though. Maxi can defend. He can go out and guard guys away from the basket as a big man. So he's a very important part of that team.
Sure.
But not as a DFS player.
Right. All right. Well, on the Clippers side, I mentioned that Pat Beverly is doubtful, so there is some value with those guards. Shamet and Reggie Jackson are both playable for me. Reggie Jackson picked it up last game with 26 fantasy points.
Yeah.
He crushed value. When he's coming off the bench, he's got more of an opportunity to score. But then we know about that bench with the Clippers. We've got Lou Williams, who had a monster game last time out.
He's terrifying. Every time he touches the ball, as a Mavs fan, I wince. Like, he's going to score.
It's much
he's
more
unbelievable.
It's much more fun to roster him and root for him because he's so crafty and he always gets it done, especially in the fourth quarter. He's a terrific closer. So, he's certainly in play, a little bit pricey. Harrell, I feel like he's got to break out here one of these times, but I don't know if I'll get to him on this slate. I feel a little bit better about Boban if he's going to get 16 minutes. Harrell was really only in that 18 to 20 minute range himself. And it's not easy for Harrell to go into the paint and deal with Boban. So, probably won't go to Harrell. And then back to the starters again. Kawhi certainly in play. Paul George, slumping. I don't know if I'll go there. Jamal Murray, the same price basically. To me, it's Murray.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, man, because you've got a lot of split positions here. Again, as just having 2 games, that's why I'm not thrilled about this slate. I mean, Harrell and Zubac are going to split minutes. You know how much I hate that. Yep. Boban, I mean, I just can't, play a cash game and hope the guy's going to get 15 stinking minutes. I mean, it's ridiculous. So I know he can score in that period of time, and maybe he does get 20 or 22, but, he could get 8. You just don't know. So it's too risky for me there. And then same exact thing with the Clippers point guard position. I guarantee you we'll look at the stat line afterwards, and Jackson and Shamet are going to each play this like 20 minutes each. I mean, it's that simple. The way, these coaches are managing the rotations now. So the key factor is finding the guys, to me, that you can roster that aren't the stars that are going to get consistent minutes. Maybe a Marcus Morris falls in that category because they like to rotate him. Yep. I think you're going to see a little more of Kawhi on Luka in this game. I think, when push came to shove in that last game, it was like, screw this. He just pointed, I got him. I mean, he made that call himself. Kawhi was picking him up. And for some reason, he switched on that inbounds play at the end and let Reggie take him, which is the craziest thing I've ever seen. When I saw that switch, I yelled at Doss. I said, he is going to make this, because he switched the pick. He could have just fought over it, and he did. But that's the other part that scares me about Luka here. Again, 2-game slate, you got to take him as a blocker. But if Kawhi is going to say, screw this, it's 2-2, we're not losing this game, and I'm sticking on Luka like a glove, that is going to cause some trouble for Luka. I mean, Kawhi is possibly the best defender in the entire league, if not the best. And so that's a little bit of a concern. So we got to see that matchup from the beginning. But I'm telling you, I think that's coming, and I'm not thrilled about it. So, I think you can look at some of these guys, but, again, GPP-wise, you're going to have to just be picking on the right guys that are going to, get hot and play a stretch of minutes. But I don't know how you roster George, even though his price continues to go down because he's been playing so bad. But, man, is he in a funk? I mean, he's shooting in the low 20s, which, like you said, it makes him look like Steph Curry compared to the way Cleve is shooting it. But,
right.
It's hard to take him at that price. But you do know one of these games he's going to go ballistic and, have about 65 fantasy points, and everybody's going to be saying, why didn't I dial him up here? But, certainly I'm not 100% opposed to giving the dude a shot, because I know he's on a terrible run, but he's such a great player. Yep. You know that if he sees a couple of those go in a row, then it's just going to instantly change. So,
plus he can get you a steal and a block, steal, and all of a sudden he takes it to the house for 5 fantasy points, and those can pile up quickly.
And in a 2-2 series, that dude's playing 38 minutes in this game. I'm telling you right now. So, I have no problem going there. But okay. I think it's an intriguing game. The matchups are going to be very, very interesting, and everything is going to rotate and shift and change if Porzingis does play. Then you've got everything shifts. So, that's a big piece of information that we need. But I'll tell you, if we go into that last 30 minutes and he's still a game time decision, I'll be damned if I'm rostering him. I am not taking that news coming in 6.5 minutes after lock that the dude's not playing.
Right. We don't need that. I'll test it out in warmups and then we'll decide. Well, great. That's not very helpful for us. So, it would only be GPP at that point, and not in your main lineup. Really, I mean, you just can't trust it.
No, and I would assume if he plays, he's probably going to play a decent allotment of minutes. But we just have to see. We got to watch that news closely. Yeah. Everybody's going to be circling around that info, it's not going to be a surprise like it was in this last game. So we'll know something.
All right, looking forward to it.
Anything else in this one?
That does it for me.
Yeah, and today was almost, for me anyway, I know you had some awesome takes, but for me it was more of a strategical talk day as opposed to just pointing guys out, because I was able to take some extra time this morning and look at that sample size statistically. And some people say you're crazy, that's not enough games. You're looking at 11 games each or whatever they've played, 12 games each. But it is sort of a sample size enough to me at this point, because we're not dealing out, you're not going to get, man coming in there for the Clippers playing in, there's just everybody's playing their main guys. And, you've seen the rotation and the coaches and how they're reacting to people throughout this bubble and into the playoffs. So we can start taking advantage of those, and play those. I'll tell you the key too is if the game doesn't blow out and you have rostered the guys that are going to close that last 5 or 6 minutes and then also play in overtime if it goes overtime, because usually they stay with that same flow, that's a difference maker. I mean, that's when there's a lot of points to be had, a lot of foul shots to be made, and that makes a big difference. So, the confidence that the coaches are showing in players to finish games is a real big indicator for a positive DFS rostering, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
All right, man. YouTube, DFS Coach Talk. If you're watching us on that now, please click the thumbs up, the subscribe, and the little alarm button. That is extremely important to us as we try to move up the ratings there in the algorithm on YouTube. Instagram, DFS_Coach Talk. Twitter, I'm at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. He is at Language Olympic. Shane is at DET Sports Shane. Follow us in our basketball takes. It will be Andrew and I, obviously, today with putting the lineups out tomorrow. Excuse me. And then Shane and I have tomorrow putting them out for the next day. So follow all three of us there. Jump in Discord. We'd love to have you join us for this playoff run. We did announce and post today, for those of you that are big football guys that have been listening through this and then want to join for football, we do have a fall special that runs from September 1st to December 31st, and that's only $199 for the whole entire time, and you don't just get football. When you join DFS Coach Talk, you get every single thing that we have, the 4 main sports that we do, lineups, content, extra pods, one-on-ones, everything that we do in there is yours. So we would love to have you join us. We want to thank our presenting sponsors, mybookie.ag and tvg.com. Also on Kobe Day 824 here, certainly remind you of our charity of choice, which is mambaon3.org. That's MAMBAONTHREE.org. All right, my man, I think that is it. I am ready to hit the sheets here in late night, early morning, whatever you want to call it, and just get fired up for this Mavericks game tomorrow. I hope it's as exciting as the last one.
Yes, absolutely. That would be tremendous.
Terrific. Any final words?
Thanks a lot for joining us. And if you join us as a member, then tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, what you'll get is the FanDuel cash lineup, the GPP lineup, and the coach's clipboard on DraftKings.
And don't forget Fantasy Draft. I'm also providing that hybrid, and we've been smacking it too. So we got all 3 of them that we're helping you out with. So fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. Great job. And we're excited for tomorrow. And then you can join tomorrow. Shane and I will be on here bantering about however many games on that next slate we have to check and see. Not a whole lot of series have closed out, so we may have multiple games tomorrow. So, all right. Thank you very much. We hope all of you enjoyed Kobe Bryant Day, and rest in peace, Kobe and Gigi. They'll always be in our thoughts and prayers and mind. And we appreciate you all joining us this evening. And we'll look forward to tomorrow and getting Shane on here to spin the hits with us. That's inside joke. With Shane as a side rapper, I think, in there. 8 Mile, he's in Detroit, so you know how that goes. But we're excited to catch you again tomorrow too. So enjoy it. Hope you got a lot out of this. And again, strategy starts coming into play big time now. Not just looking at stats, but really looking at the game behind the game. So thank you for joining us, and we really look forward to catching you again tomorrow when we're going to crush it in DFS.